Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. Coast to Coast, This Week in America. The game, Let's Play Spaceships by Scott Rivera, is a childhood game brought to life in a book. The game is an action-packed adventure book full of suspense, intrigue, abstract scientific theory, and spiritual insight, reminding all who read it to let your childhood dreams live on. Scott is 49 years old, 3 children, currently works at the Starbucks roasting plant in Minden, Nevada, lives in Carson City, Nevada, also enjoys writing poetry and music. Scott Rivera, author of the science fantasy The Game, Let's Play Spaceships, is our guest on This Week in America. Scott, welcome to the program. Love the book. Looking forward to talking about it. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Rick.
This is such a remarkable story. Let's talk about how the story began. How long did it take you to write this book? And when you were a child, did you ever dream that someday I'd be doing a TV interview talking about the game, the book that came from the game that we're playing when we were kids? How did this all begin?
Well, I guess it's inspired by like movies we saw, like science fiction movies, and me and my cousin, my brothers would play spaceships in the backyard and pretend like we're flying to different worlds and seeing different people, aliens, etc. And that's kind of how it got its start, and it kind of evolved into its own world. And I think that's what it is kind of right now, is its own world in my mind, in my brother's mind as well. So that's kind of the basis, the rudimentary, how it got its start, I think, and it's kind of grew from there. Now it's its own world.
Well, it is its own world. You mentioned that as the game progressed, developed with you and your friends and relatives, that it sort of took on a life of its own. It's continued to take on a life of its own with the book, the game, the book, Let's Play Spaceships. Chapter 1, you talk about the leap from Earth. I mean, you take us right from the beginning all the way through all these different experiences. And I mentioned there's so many qualities and themes that you talk about. You really gave this a lot of thought. Was this... When you were growing up, did you give it this much thought when you were developing the games? The fundamental rules of the game, the script that you came up with, how involved was that as you were kids in developing this?
I think it was just like flying around and playing spaceships, but I had to add a lot of story to the original story.
Yes.
It was like each time we played the game was like maybe a little different, for different aspects of what's in the book, and I had to kind of string it together into one cohesive story. It's I don't know if it explains it that well, but it's just all these different times. We're talking years of playing games together, and that's why the USP. I saw like the original like badge that I used to use when we played the United Space Police.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I made one for me and my brothers. We played. You got those little handcuffs that you get at the grocery store or some store, and you pretend like you're police arresting people and taking them to jail and stuff like that. So that's part of what's in the book as well. And so that strung all these stories together into one cohesive story, and I hope that makes sense,
Well, it makes perfect sense, and the way that you do it is so remarkable, and you pull this off, and it's interactive. We all get involved in Scott's adventures. Scott Rivera, that's Rivera, his website, scottriverabooks.com. Got a video on there. It's less than 2 minutes, and you talk about the badge that you have, and it's so cute that you have that from the childhood, and you pull this out, and it's just amazing how what started off as this game that really had no rules. It was just limitless. It's bound by our imagination. Has evolved into something like this. The game, Let's Play Spaceships by Scott Rivera. How many books do you plan on writing? Will this be a series of books?
So far, I have a second one. I actually just finished the writing part just yesterday, actually, and I just now the proofreading and all the other stuff that goes along with preparing the book for publishing, but it's actually done. And the tentative title right now is The Game, Let's Play Survive the Planet of Mutants. That's the tentative title for it, but it's the game series because it's somewhat of a sequel to the first
Yes.
one.
There's so many lessons as we read this. I mentioned in the beginning, I put the label on it, science fiction. It's really much more than that, isn't it? It's more than just science fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about some of the
It's
themes, some of the elements that you bring into this, because that's, our imagination runs wild with science fiction, but there's so many elements that you've developed with this game. Talk about some of those.
as far as trying to build up like a psychological intrigue. As what I mean is that I want you to think about things as we're reading and like introspective as far as everyone I think had a childhood game when they were young, and maybe even now as you're adults that you have these imaginary ideas and hopefully remember some of your childhood games so that maybe inspired at least think about those. And that's one thing that's part of the book to kind of bring that to the forefront.
There's physics involved in this as well. Talk about that, because you really need to be thoughtful as you're reading this and understand some of these concepts that you bring out. Sometimes science fiction, you just throw stuff out there and it's got no credibility at all. You've got to put a lot of thought into developing this. So physics, I mean, you actually learn something when you're reading the book and playing the game, don't you?
Yeah, I guess like some of the, I guess you could call it the abstract scientific theory about how I describe it's the gravity being a force that's like a not like a pushing force instead of a pulling force. It's mostly the outward exertion of electromagnetism, trying to combine all four of the major forces of the universe, which is electromagnetism and gravity, weak and strong nuclear forces. And not many people know about those, but those are all scientifically proven right now that those four forces, and the only one they can't really combine with all of them is gravity. So that's kind of what I analyzed in the book. And it might be hard to someone to wrap their head around, but that's some of my own personal beliefs. I tried to explain it the best I could in the book, and that's one of the rudimentary like cause of why the space highway, how they travel from galaxies to galaxies, all the way across the universe in record time because they're traveling far beyond the speed of light, millions of times on the space highway. It allows them to get all the way around the universe quickly.
Well, you lay all of that out. You've created your own world. So often when we come up with games
Yeah.
as a kid, it's very simple. But how has this evolved over the years? Is this the same basic game? And with your knowledge over the years, have taken that and expanded on it?
I think as I learned stuff, about like scientific theory, I kind of applied it into the book. And even like there's this part when they go in a submarine, or they're not going, or going under the water, and that I learned about water pressure at one point, and how immense it could be the deeper you go in the water. And that's was something that we played as far as going to an underground water city. So that was also added into the game at one point because it was the scary part. Are we going to make it? Are we going to die? Because the pressure's so immense. And it's kind of like that submarine incident that happened with the Titanic. Was it last year or the year before when those people died in the submarine because the
Oh,
pressure
yes, yes.
imploded the submarine?
Yeah,
Same kind of a
instantaneously.
principle. Yeah.
This is entertaining, and I hate to say educational because that makes it sound like, okay, I'm going to have to take notes and there's going to be a test at the end of the time it takes to read the book. That's not the case, but you'll learn something as you're doing this, and you will do this in a very entertaining way. Spiritual and emotional exploration, another element that's something that you've woven into this, and we really think about ourselves and our emotions, don't we, as we're reading the book?
I hope that brings it on. I mean, I think I said at one point that if I inspire anybody to chase a lifelong dream, then I think I've succeeded. And there was one girl at work who decided to write a book too, because I wrote one, and she's like, I'll help you. I'll give you some advice. So that inspiring other people to do that is actually something that makes you feel good too. But that came from the book itself.
Well, and it's
That
interesting because a quote you have on your website is don't give up on your dreams if you really believe in them. And so often we
yeah,
see people that get caught up in life and it's thinking, okay, that's a childhood dream. It's not going to happen. I'm in my 30s. I have children. I've got a family. I really can't do that. You've juggled all of those. I mentioned the children that you have, the job that you have. What's your goal in this book? Is that a big part of it to encourage people? Look, this came from my childhood. And I'm 49 years old, and I'm still talking about this, and I've made it into a successful book, soon to be a book series. What do you hope the takeaway is as people read the game?
I guess it's like I said, inspire, chase your childhood dreams, and got to be able to persevere against a lot of adversity. Like for instance, I started writing this book over 20 years ago, and I put it down because you get busy,
Yes.
things. I had a family and all other stuff, and then recently after some life events that were changed everything. So I ended up, when I got my book, I decided to finish it, and I was like almost a divine drive to finish it. Like I have to do this. I know this is a great story and it has to get out there. So that's what I did. I buckled down and I worked on it day and night and day, and finally finished it and got it published, as you can see. So I'm pretty happy that perseverance pays off, right?
Well, it does. And in your case, touching people in a way where they are responding, they enjoy your message, they enjoy what you've set up for them in the game. Let's Play Spaceship. Scott Rivera, our guest, the author, Rivera. His website, scottriverabooks.com. Book available Amazon, wherever books are sold, leapright.com. And we thank them for arranging our conversation today. And all of this on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Are there other books that you're working on? You mentioned you just finished one, and are they all in the same genre? Are they all space-oriented?
Well, this one, the next one, it's not all about space. There is some part of space, but it's another game we played that's kind of connected. I'm not going to reveal too much about it, but it's, like I said, it's about a sequel in the series, and there's possibly a third one that's in mind of what I
Interesting.
might do. And I don't have a title for that one yet because it's not even, haven't wrote one word to it yet. But I plan on it at some point.
Talk about the characters in your book and how you develop characters. Are they based on people you know?
Yeah, I think that was the easy part because they people I know, and I can easily model the character after that person. So, like my brothers and me are in the book, and then some other people that I know that were a big part of my life are also in the book. I changed the names slightly to, but not for the most part. It was easy to make a character for them, and it was like I said, it was just an easy part for that.
A big part of the book, and it helps us follow, is the artwork that's used in the book. Did you create the artwork in the game?
Yeah, and like all the maps and stuff,
Yes.
they're actually somewhat to scale for it's showing the universe, the galaxies, and there's also a master map showing each super quadrant of where they go. And these are actually to scale. I took the time out to make them so they're accurate, and that helps me envision where they are flying around in the universe. It's like, oh, okay, that's where they are, and I can kind of know which route they need to take to get to the places they're going. So they all kind of interlace with each other.
What has this process been like for you in writing the book? And I assume it's been, for the most part, enjoyable, probably frustrating times, challenging times as you were putting the book together. What do you enjoy most about the book writing process, in particular going back and reliving your childhood? You've got characters, as you said, built on yourself and the others that used to play the game as you were growing up. How enjoyable has the writing process been for you?
I would say it has mostly been enjoyable. I mean, like I said, I write on it. I write in it day and night. Lay in bed at night, write a paragraph or even if I write one sentence, that's fine. Or at work, I'll write it. So I enjoy the whole process, and I really enjoy the drawing as part. I'm recently started drawing on my computer, so that I have another version of my book that's coming out that has new artwork in it. It's been touched up and straightened the lines and stuff like that. And I really enjoy making the maps and all that stuff. I guess the publishing part is something I haven't really enjoyed that much. But dealing with all the different people that I have to interact with, and I just want to create. That's about it, and put this story, a great story on paper, or and put it so the rest of the world can enjoy it.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. The creative process is one part of it. That is the big part, where you put yourself out there, you write your story, you have it ready to go. Okay, now what? Well, now you have to you go to the business part of it and the marketing part of that. Talk about that and how challenging that might be for some people. People listening that have thought about writing a book and don't contemplate what happens after that. What gets you through the business part of that?
That's a good question. I mean, I know, of course, a lot of people have to go the self-publishing route just to get their start, and
Yes.
that's the way I did too. And I would say that, like, the constant bombardment of trying to get the results you want versus what other people think you want to get, and having to interact with so many different people, and everyone has their own idea. I don't know, and it costs a lot too because there's other aspects. I can't afford to advertise it, and trying to upsell you with things that you don't probably need that much. So overall, the publishing experience has been mediocre, and some ways you feel like you might be getting scammed or whatever. Or there's always that pretentious part because you read about it all the time on the web where you get people getting ripped off and scammed. So it's the publishing process is not the greatest from my point of view.
Well,
The creation part is great.
when you do the business part, you need to find somebody that you trust and listen to them for their guidance, and to be cautious as you're getting into that part as well, and know who you're dealing with. Scott Rivera is our guest on the program. His book is available. The book is called The Game, Let's Play Spaceships. I get the impression you're excited about other people discovering the game as you were when you and your brothers and your friends were playing the game. Is that part of the fun of this? Because you know how much fun they're having, and you're having as much fun knowing they're having fun.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, like I said, I think I said, I hope to bring people along and play our game with us. And that if they read my book, I'm hoping what they feel when they read it, that, hey, I'm along with the game, I can play with them kind of thing,
What was it about, I'll put it, science fiction at the time, that got you involved when you were playing with your brothers? And it wasn't just a normal game. This evolved into something that was really special. It was a bonding experience for you and all of your family members and friends. What was it about science fiction? Were there books or TV shows that you watched at the time that got your interest in this?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I got to give accolades to, Star Wars was definitely one. Star Trek, I think Battlestar Galactica, and there's a whole bunch of them that were just like, hey, it gives you an idea, like, hey, let's try that. Or
Yes.
even the cartoon Star Blazers. I don't know if anyone ever remembers that one at all, but that one was pretty inspiring too. And all these old TV shows and stuff, and it's a whole combination of like learning new scientific theories and how far away space is, because there's galaxies and stars out that are so mind-boggling far away. It's like, wow, this is so and they're beautiful when you see pictures of stars and nebulas that are so beautiful in color. It's like beauty of nature, at a huge scale.
And so many of us don't even look up and enjoy what's there. And you look up and you see opportunities. It gets you thinking. It gets you from a creative process to figure how I can tell this story. You say so many more adventures in this imaginative universe that are waiting to be written. It's really limitless, isn't it? The stories that you can tell.
Yeah, especially since, like you said, the imagination can run wild, and I would like to believe that everybody, like I said, has a childhood game that they played, and to help inspire them, like, hey, the imagination has no limits.
It's interesting. You wonder if children even play games anymore and interactive. I don't mean to go
Hope
off
so.
on all this, what kids are doing, but you think back to what we did as kids, and it wasn't done with a screen. It was done with people getting together and imagination and telling stories and outdoing other people and telling stories, which was obviously the case with your situation as well. I mentioned 3 children. What do they like? Are they interested in science fiction in the game?
My kids are not quite as much. Maybe my middle son, but the other ones are into a lot of things like games, phones.
Yes.
Not really something I really care too much for, but uh,
Well, growing up at a whole different time when you were growing up decades before that when I was growing up, this was really something our imagination ran wild, and you were able to take that and remember it and to reflect on it in putting this book together, the game Let's Play Spaceships. What do you hope, we've got a minute or so left here at the end, what do you hope the takeaway is, the message as people read the game? What do you hope it is that they experience and something they take with them into the future?
I guess to, like I said, persevere, and I want to inspire people to chase their dreams, and persevere at all costs, hoping to bring out that childhood wonderment of imagination that I think everybody has, or maybe they did have and can rekindle that. With all the insights in my book, I'm hoping if they read it, they'll really enjoy it, and it'll bring on more like an emotional response too. So some of the things that were said in the book, that's one of the things I wrote, to kind of like give you some thought and stir up your emotions. And I'm hoping that would be the takeaway for it.
Well, you mentioned that it's so important to rekindle that youthful imagination, that sense of awe that we had with this whole big world out there, and we can conquer it. And we lose that as we go through life and all the different decades that life throws at us. But it's there. Scott's been able to go back and recapture that. And the book is receiving excellent reviews. The game Let's Play Spaceships. Scott Rivera, that's Rivera. His website, scottriverabooks.com. Good information there. The video I mentioned, you can order the book there as well. You'll be able to keep up with Scott and other books by going to his website. Book, of course, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the usual places. My thanks to leapwright.com for arranging our conversation with Scott today. Scott, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll connect again as the next book comes out. And excellent job. It gets all of us thinking, no matter our age. We really can go back and capture some of that imagination and have a smile on our faces as we're doing it. It really brings back some great memories. Thank you for being with us on the program.
So.
It does. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Scott Rivera.
Pleasure speaking with you.
It's been a pleasure having you on the program to talk about the book, The Game. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. We're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.